Welcome to Python Frederick in March of 2018. Today we're going to be talking about how you can build a website for very inexpensively. We're going to look at Python Frederick a little bit, pythonfrederick.org a little bit, and then making a similar site. We're not going to be making something exactly like it, but we're going to give you the tools to equip you to make an analogous site. So this is our goal for the day. From start to finish, I've done no advanced prep of this, so we're going to pray to the internet gods, I guess, that this will all go smoothly. But we're going to build a website, and it will be available on the internet. All of you should be able to reach it. Yeah, it'll be fun. So I made a very simplified model of what we will be doing. And we'll get into the details of this later, but just to give you a mental framework of how this is going, we're going to be using a tool called a static site generator. There are dozens, maybe hundreds of these different kinds of tools, but they take content, they compile it, if you will, into HTML output, and they make a website that then you can host somewhere and that your users can reach. So our process we're going to be working on the code side. We're going to give our code to a website building tool, and that tool will do the hosting for us, and then our users will be able to reach our stuff. So here's our tool set today. Show of hands, roughly familiarity with GitHub, Git. Okay, good. So Git is our version control tool of the day, and GitHub is where our code will be hosted. I told you we're going to be using a static website generator. The one that we're using is a tool called Pelican, which is a popular tool in the Python ecosystem. Like I said, they're in all different languages. Python Frederick itself is actually built with a different tool, which Patrick gives me grief about because it's actually a Ruby tool. But it doesn't matter. You can do the same thing with it. Sure. So Pelican will be what we're demonstrating here today, since some of you have some familiarity with Python, and we're not going to bust out a Ruby tool at a Python presentation. Back in our diagram, the website builder and hosting platform that we're going to use is a website called Netlify. It's a really cool service. If you haven't seen it before, happy to introduce you to it today because it does a lot of awesome stuff. And then finally, I'm going to show you Hover. Sorry, I'm not going to buy you a domain name today just to do a presentation, but I'll give you an idea of if you wanted to be hosting your site at myname.com, how you would do that. So that's the end of the actual slides. Hooray. Then we get to the fun code bits. So there's a bunch of stuff in here, but there's nothing up my sleeve in terms of actual directories for new code. So we're going to actually start from GitHub itself, where we're going to make a repository for this project. So you guys seem pretty familiar with Git and GitHub, so hopefully you've done something like this before. But I'm going to go to my profile and go to the repository section and say, make a new repository. And we're going to call our repository Pelican site. It can be whatever. A website for Python Frederick. It's public. This is going to be using some Python tools, so we'll go ahead and tell Git to ignore Python temporary kind of files by seeding it with a Python-based gitignore file. And because we're good net citizens, we'll pick a license of BSD2 because I'm partial to that one. So here we go. Our repository is created, and let's go ahead and get it locally. see if SSH is permitted here. looks like no. So you guys will have to see me type out passwords.
So you're recording that too?
You won't see my password.
Okay, thank you.
You'll have to watch me. Well, apparently not. Maybe I have it cached somewhere. Lucky me. Okay, so we're going to go into our project. Remember, it's just a shell of a project. All that's there is that license file, that BSD file, and the gitignore file that has all the Python specific stuff in it. Really nothing there. So where to start? The first thing we need is our actual tool to do the building, and we're going to use Pelican, and we actually need to specify our list of tools in a way that Netlify will understand, because Netlify later on in this process will be building our code, so it will have to know how to get the tool itself. Netlify is pretty smart about different programming languages, so it knows the conventions of the language, and it knows that in the Python ecosystem, if you have a requirements.txt file, that is where your packages are. So we're going to create a requirements.txt file, and in it we're going to put Pelican, and Pelican can optionally use Markdown, which is a markup language, and I think by default, I think it uses restructured text. So if you're okay using restructured text, you wouldn't have to include Markdown, but Markdown is pretty popular, so we're going to add Markdown to our list. So we have our two tools that we're going to need, and when we're doing local development, we want to work in a Python virtual environment, and that is basically just a way so that we don't pollute our computer with all the tools that we're doing for every single project. So we need to start by creating a virtual environment that will give us a workspace, if you will, for actually dealing with Pelican. And we're going to do it in the fancy new Python 3 way, rather than use an older legacy tool. So in Python 3, they have included this virtual environment feature as a module called venv. So when we say here Python 3-m venv, we are invoking the Python 3 virtual env module as a utility here. And this might be a little confusing, so the second parameter there after that is the directory name that we want to use. I'm just going to use the same name so it's very clear that this is where our virtual environment is. And after we create it, I can show you really quickly what is what's in there. So what a virtual env consists of is like a copy of the binaries and libraries that are at the system level, but it also has modified paths for your computer. So when I do a source command in my shell, source is basically saying take everything from the shell script that I'm about to execute and apply it to my current shell. So when I say source venv bin activate, we're telling our shell start using the Python from this virtual environment. So, and I can prove it. Like I can now run which on Python, and you can actually see it's coming from not the system level Python, but from the bin directory of that directory that we created. So kind of gives you an idea that all of the stuff is contained to this one directory, everything for this project. So we're going to run pip, which is the installer tool for the Python ecosystem, and we're going to give it our requirements txt file. And a bunch of gobbledygook, but the benefit is at the end, if we look in our lib area, all that stuff got put in here. Here's Pelican, here's Markdown, it's all there. So that's good. So we're now equipped locally to do everything we need to do. There is a weird oddity with Z shell so I have to deactivate and reactivate. Don't worry about that. It's not, if you're running bash, it won't apply to you. All right, So we now have our tools installed. We have our repository set up, and we can create actually the project. So Pelican provides us with some tools. You can see there's a Pelican themes tool, Pelican quick start, and others. The one that we want here is to run the Pelican quick start tool. And this will do all of the scaffolding to put the very minimal bits in place that are going to be needed to run Pelican. And it's it walks you through it and asks you some questions. And do I want to create a website in the current directory? That's what .dot stands for. Yes, I do. This is going to be Python Frederick site, if I could type it. And I'll be the author. Why not? English. No, I don't want to specify a URL right now. And by the way, any of these questions that are being answered, they're just being dumped into a configuration file. So if you want to change them later, you can change them later. But it's trying to get you along to the minimum that it's going to need. We can do pagination, sure, why not? 10. The author of Pelican is in France, so that's why it's defaulting to Europe, Paris. But we're going to default to the East Coast time zone. We want some tools to help us, a bunch more tools, and then it's going to give us various ways that we could upload to. So we have different hosting, but none of these are going to really apply for us because we're using Netlify, which I'll cover a little later. So yeah, there's a lot of things built in, which is really cool. So if you see anything, you're like, oh, S3, man, S3's my jam, and you want to upload Pelican with S3, you answer yes there, but it defaulted to no for all of these. So what do we have after this? We've got our requirements.txt file, which we added, and then those 5 other files, which the Pelican quick start added for us. So I'm going to add them all, and because I don't remember all the git command line, I remember only my aliases. This is git add all, and we're going to commit it. We're going to say starting template, because it doesn't really matter what the commit message is here. So we're almost ready to go and see our website in action on the web, like right now, having done almost nothing, which is pretty impressive. There's one more thing that we'll need, but you know what, why don't we watch it fail? That's a good way to, because you're going to see failures somehow along the way, and you might as well get a little comfortable with what does a failure look like and how do I react to it when it does happen. So let's go to the web, and we're going to go to Netlify. Here's Netlify. Let's log in. I already had credentials. Here's where it would have prompted you if you'd never been in Netlify before. You can hook it up directly to a GitHub account, Bitbucket. There's 1 or 2 others. I don't remember what they are right now. And very obviously, it's the new site from Git. Hooray. So we're getting our repository from GitHub. And it gives me a list of all my repositories. Probably need to clean some of these out. And Pelican site is what we said it was.
How did you do the account linking between Netlify? Is that like an OAuth type of, or, okay.
Yeah, when you authenticate with Netlify for the first time, you're saying, I'm coming from my GitHub account. They go ahead and also create the appropriate connections to your GitHub account. And, all right. Our build command, so I actually missed a step in this process. I could have done, let's go back, because this is going to be easier. So let's just deploy this. Maybe. I want to try something else. Because what I missed was it asked you for a build command. And I want to highlight something that's really cool about Netlify. Like I said, they're smart about different languages. So they already know Pelican because it's a common language, or it's from a common ecosystem. What I failed to do is actually push up the code. Oh boy, here's where, do I remember this? Shoot. Let's try it again. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, we need to be able to push. So I think what I'll do probably is take it off the screen.
Yeah, that's good.
It's going to record. I'll edit that out later. But